Brilliant. So first, welcome everybody. Thank you all for joining today's sprint. I am delighted to introduce you to our speaker today, who is Brent Dawson. Brent has been working incredibly hard on development of this course, and he is the perfect person to be talking you through the exciting course that we've got coming up at Firebrand. Brent has actually been working for 30 years. He doesn't look it, I know, in the IT industry. He is an MCT, so Microsoft certified trainer and certified in information system security professional. And he's developed several certifications and accreditations in the IT industry. You'll notice he's got a bit of a funny accent because he's originally from Canada. And he's been working, as I said, really closely with the Firebrand team to develop our OpenAI ChatGPT course that he's going to talk you through today. So without further ado, I will hand you over to Brent, and please do type any questions you've got in the chat box and we'll address them at the end.
Great. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome. My name is Brent Dawson, as was mentioned, and yes, I am a foreigner. I am dual citizen, English and Canadian, but I was born in Canada, so I'm the country that everybody likes. So that's a good thing. And as I said before to some of the people that weren't logged into the session yet, I am a real person. I'm not an AI hologram or any of that sort of stuff. So, you know, I'm actually here and it's not pre-recorded or anything. And really today what we're going to do is give you a short idea of what it is that we're preparing for the AI concepts course and sort of the reasons why we should we think people should take it, and sort of the things that we're going to learn to be able to do when we're done the actual course and you know, take back to your work. So the first thing that I think everybody wants to know is who should be attending this thing. You know, what's the point of attending this course, or who should be the type of person that should be attending. There are three levels of people that primarily this is geared towards. That doesn't necessarily mean that anybody could take it, but generally it's geared towards developers. So anybody who builds software applications, anyone who designs web bots or you know, bots for websites or chat sites and that sort of thing, or any add-ins for Microsoft 365. So when we go through the sort of the outline of what we're going to take for the 3 days or 4 days is specifically around software applications. We're looking at things like Python specifically to work in conjunction with different types of applications that Python would work with. They would work primarily in conjunction with data analysts to do data analysis. Web bots, sorry. Web bots could be either applications that are created on their own, or they're applications that are run through the Microsoft Dynamics platform through the bots capabilities of Dynamics 365, and using tools such as OpenAI, which is the basis for ChatGPT, and other tools and add-ins that can be added to that component to allow you to create other application capabilities to the standard Office programs. You may have heard of OpenAPI, but you may have also heard of Copilot. And Copilot is a tool that Microsoft is really pushing hard in the AI space to assist people in making their applications run more efficiently. And so as part of the program, not only will we look at sort of what is out of the box capabilities, but we'll also look at how we can add on to the systems, and that's best geared towards the development class because they have the experience in the background on actually how to write software and code. Another group of individuals who we could probably have successfully complete this program is anybody in the professional services side of things. Now, professional services is a really big term. It could be a number of things. So as a solutions architect, technically I'm part of a professional services organization. I just happen to be very technical. But things that people devise and write in the professional services, things like, as an example, for a project, statement of work, or looking at a project plan, or helping you to create and design a project deployment. Any of those types of things can be used from a professional services point of view. There are all sorts of different add-ins that we now have for things like legal cases and writing documents of all sorts of different types. And so we're going to learn how to add those components, those add-ins into the system to make the ChatGPT and OpenAI work even better and have more capabilities than just what's normally on the standard website. And lastly, I think we should look specifically at the data type of people. So data analysts, data architects, those sorts of things. These are the people that will work with large amounts of data. They'll work in things like Azure SQL, or they'll use things like MongoDB or Cosmos DB, very large data sets that are going to be analyzed and scrutinized for things like sales trends, be able to extract information out of particular types of files, and be able to organize information and so on. And so the data analyst uses a lot of Python. I actually myself am doing my master's degree in data sciences, and I've had to learn Python, and I've used ChatGPT to actually teach me Python. I never used it before. I had no idea how it worked, and luckily, being from my university days, which was 37 years ago, getting old, I took programming languages, and luckily most of the programming languages have the same sort of structure and so forth. And it's a way for us to be able to take that language, Python, and move it into the AI sphere. So what will I learn? And the point of this program is to basically give you the foundations enough to be productive at your job. We also are looking at giving you some capabilities and getting certifications, so that because this is the Firebrand Bootcamp style of courseware, we basically will be presenting a lot of information to you. I refer to it as the fire hose method, where we will put a lot of information geared towards you, and at the end of the time frame on the last day, there are some exams that you can pass to get certified in them, and be able to walk away with some certifications. But from a class point of view, or what you'll take, prerequisites would be the Azure fundamentals. So having an idea of how Azure works, knowing the different menus, knowing how to set up resources and use the resource manager and all those sorts of capabilities. There's also some pre-reading that you should complete. This includes things like the Microsoft Learn Introduction to Azure OpenAI Services. This is a free access on the Microsoft Learn site. But it gives you some good background information as to what types of things we're going to be looking at when we get to the actual training. So the first day of actual training will be AI 900, which is the Microsoft Azure AI Fundamentals course. So it goes through the beginnings and the basics of how AI works in Microsoft Azure. There'll be some exercises and some hands-on labs where you'll do things like analyze pictures for grouping. You'll be able to extract data out of a table. You'll be able to do analysis of large amounts of data. And it really just is a nice way through both instructor-led and hands-on lab exercises for you to be able to see how Azure AI will actually function and some of the things that you'll be able to do. Some of the components that we'll talk about and show you, you won't have access to in the lab environments just because of the nature of the training environment. But if you have access to Azure back at your employment, or even your own subscription, you'll be able to take full advantage of the things that we're talking about in the training sessions. That's the first day. The second day is AI 102. And AI 102 is an extension of AI 900, where we're going to start building out and implement a solution in Azure AI that we can then deploy and allow other individuals to be able to go in and use. And so it will go through the process of designing an application, building the application out, how to test it correctly, make sure that the test data that you're running against will produce valid results against the production data that you're running, and then ultimately, from an application point of view, being able to deploy that application into the Azure AI space and then make it publicly accessible to your users. And again, this is an extension of the stuff that we'll be learning the day before, where you're going to go out and analyze some data. There'll be sort of half instructor based and half hands-on lab exercises, again, so you can see how the system actually functions and be able to deploy a solution that you've built. Now, the other thing that we need to do is, and I'm just going to shut my camera off here so you can see the whole display, is on the third day, after we've completed the first two sessions, on the third day, we're going to integrate Python. So the first day, as I said before, Python is probably one of the more popular languages that is used with AI capabilities and in systems. And so we're going to spend the day going through and looking at how to integrate Python with both OpenAI and ChatGPT. Now, one of the things that you probably noticed is, if you've done any reading on AI in the last little while, is that it's constantly changing. So what you see here in terms of the modules for the third day are going to be changing slightly as the time and the technology moves forward. So even though we've specified that these are the specific 8 or 9 items that we'll be looking at, I guarantee you that we'll be adding or changing things as we go through, just because of the speed that the technology is changing, the new add-ons that are added in every day, and so forth. But generally speaking, for Module 1, we're going to be integrating Python, so sort of an overview of the Python programming language, how it works, how it's structured, that sort of thing for people that have not used Python before. Again, this is where sort of geared towards developers is important, because they'll have an idea and an understanding of how applications work and how software coding works. We'll then take a look at implementing and integrating Python into OpenAI and the specific ways that we can add those components into the system. We'll give you some lab exercises so that you can go in and use the tool to assist in actually creating an application. And I'll give you an example of one here in a minute that we'll be actually using in the course to give you an example of how to use the tool. And then lastly, for Module 1, we'll actually do some development, and we'll go into the OpenAI tool, and we'll do some development in there so that you can see how to actually use OpenAI, how to use Python, and merge the two of them together to give us an application that we can deploy. The second module, which will be the afternoon of the third day, will be how to customize OpenAI and ChatGPT. Now, this will be geared towards more specific business applications. And so we'll look at things like, looking at the model that we're using to ask questions to the ChatGPT engine or the OpenAI engine, and fine tune the model. How do we specifically get information out of it in an efficient way? It's much like when when Google first came out, or Bing, or some of the other search engines came out. The information is there. It's just you need to understand the right way to ask the question to get the information out of the system. And that's where sort of the fine-tuning component comes in, is knowing the best way to ask the system a question so it can retrieve the best amount of information for you. We'll also look at some best practices for how to structure data sets. So looking at being able to upload a data file that has records in it, and be able to sort through the records and look for information. So we'll look at how to do that. We'll also look at some of the other applications that OpenAI and as I said, Copilot can give us in terms of the Office suite within Microsoft 365. And then we'll have some case studies where we can actually go through and explain and look at some of the configurations that the systems can handle. Again, adding some of the add-ins in, and then giving you some hands-on exercises to go out and try to create some things. And if you're attending the class, one of the things that we'll be doing under the modules 1 and 2 is you'll be able to bring in some things that you've been trying at your employment, or things that you wanted to try, and actually give them a shot in the system, in terms of a case study or an exercise, so that everybody in the room can learn from your experience, and and have the ability to ask an instructor, hey, I've got this problem, I'm trying to solve this issue, what's the best method? And so in the case studies section, we can actually bring in problems that you've been dealing with, and solve them, and hopefully come up with good solutions that you can use again when you go back to work, but everybody else in the class can go, okay, that makes sense, that's an interesting problem, and whatnot. So that's the goal behind the 3 days of training. As well, at the end of the first and second day, we'll be doing a exam prep. So for the AI 900 and the AI 102, basically the way that Firebrand training works is that we start at about 8:30 in the morning, and we do training until 6:30 in the evening to do all of the training work, and then we'll have a dinner break. And then at the end of the dinner break, we'll do a training, an exam prep, where we'll sort of review the main topics of the exam. We'll throw some practice questions out, so you get to see the idea of what the test is going to ask. And then on the fourth day, you'll be able to write the AI 900 or the AI 102 exams, or both. It's entirely up to you. So if you're on premise in the Firebrand office, you'll be able to write the exams right there. If you're going to be doing the training online, you'll be able to book your exams at your own pace. But the fourth day of the training course is geared specifically towards taking the exams, and then obviously passing them at the same time. So the last slide that I want to show you here is an example of something that we'll do as far as one of the lab exercises. So this is a program that's written in Python. And I basically went in and I asked ChatGPT to write me a quizzing program. And the quizzing program has to do a number of things. First of all, it has to ask me for my name, who's actually taking the quiz. It then asks me for 10 questions. So I have to provide 10 questions, and then I provide an answer, and it will keep track of those 10 questions and answers in the code. Once that's been completed, it will give me the opportunity to take the exam. And when I take the exam, it will give me the questions that I've answered in, and it will give the questions in random order. So it won't give them 1 through 10. It'll randomize the questions so that it's different for every person. And then if I get the question correct, it will pop up and tell me, yes, you got the question correct, or it'll pop up and tell me that I got the answer wrong, and that the correct answer is whatever it happens to be. And it'll go through and cycle through those 10 or 15 questions, and you can specify how many questions you want. And then it will keep track in the system of all the people that have written the exam. It'll keep track of their results for it. And at the very end, if anybody else does not want to take the exam and you say no, it'll print out the score from the highest person that it took the exam. It'll give you the average score of all the users, and it'll give you your score as well. So it'll print out all of that information. So I produced that question to ChatGPT, and this is the code that it executed. And it actually works. It works exactly the way that I formulated the question into the system. The key to it was I was very specific in my requirements. And when I did that, this is the code that was produced for me. And this is the type of stuff that you're going to learn when you actually take the course, is how to create sorts of coding applications and so forth that you'll be able to use to do some sort of learning or knowledge or whatever it is within your application. So that takes us to the end of the presentation, and let's do a question and answer session. And I'll stop sharing here. So let's look at some questions.
So Brent, while you've been talking through those slides and doing a great job, we actually have had Richard Parker, who has been busily answering some of the questions in the chat. So hopefully most of them have already been addressed. There was one I did just want to highlight. So Rob Guest has commented and asked about the modules being incorporated into the software skills bootcamps. And I just wanted to check if you were referring to the government funded skills bootcamps. So if you could just type in the chat box, Rob, if that's what you were referring to. If you were, then these are not included in the software skills government funded bootcamps at the moment. Yep, perfect. So we confusingly, we sometimes call our commercial courses boot camps because they feel like intensive, like a boot camp, if you're a personal trainer type boot camp. So the boot camps that we've presented today, that Brent's presented, they will definitely, as he mentioned, they will have to be adapting and changing because, as we know, the topic is changing all the time. But the skills boot camps, the government funded ones, will not incorporate these training modules. David Meekins, if you would like to, I will drop a link in the chat box. Oh, Richard has done it. If you click on the link for the skills bootcamps, submit your details, and we will get one of our advisors to give you a call and talk you through those. And I think we are up to date with any questions. So we'll give a couple more minutes if there's anybody that would like to add in any more questions. That was brilliant. Thank you, Brent, for talking us through the course.
Oh, what is the name of the course, and can you send a link to register for it?
Yeah, I will drop that in the chat box now for you.
How long are the certs valid for? The fundamentals exams don't expire. The full exams would. So AI 102, you would need to renew every year, but the renewals are free, so you don't have to go and pay for another exam. You can you'll get notified 6 months before your certification expires, and then you'll go to the MS Learn website, and it's actually open book. You get like 45 minutes to do. I think it's like 20 or 25 questions, and so you got 6 months before your certification expires to renew it. So you don't have to worry about paying for it. The only time you'd have to pay for it and do a full exam again is if you let it expire. If you're new to the ChatGPT or AI, do you think this is the right course for you? Yes, because this will be from the third day. The introduction to ChatGPT will be included as part of the programming part of it. So I think once you've gone through the fundamentals course of what AI is, and then some of the other stuff in terms of the integrations with the business tools, I think you'll be able to get a lot out of the ChatGPT part of it. Do you have to have? It helps to have good knowledge in terms of experience in programming. It's not absolutely required. The key, of course, is being able to use the tool to help you. So as an example where we were talking about writing Python code to do a deploy of a solution, you can actually use ChatGPT to help you write the Python code before you deploy the solution. So you're kind of killing two birds with one stone in that scenario. You don't necessarily have to learn everything about Python first or know a lot about Python first. You can actually use the tool to help you create the Python that you need to accomplish the solution that you're trying to get to. Are there exam questions on? Oh, sorry. Are there exam questions on Python? No, there are no exam questions on Python. You won't have to write any Python exams or any Python queries.
And there's a few people that are just asking about getting signed up or having a conversation before they sign up. So the link that's been sent for the course page, if you want to go onto that page, see prices, and then you can put in your information. One of our course advisors will give you a call, talk you through the course, give you all the details, and make sure that it is the right course for you before you sign up. The next course date is the 5th of September. So there's a few spaces left. So if you're interested, definitely fill in that form and speak to one of our advisors to reserve that place as soon as possible.
And as I wrote it, I'm the one teaching the first session, so you'll have to put up with me for 4 days.
They'll be lucky, Brent.
We'll see.
And there's a question there around the government funded courses. So if you want to go to the link that Richard sent earlier, fill in your details, we'll get somebody to give you a call and talk you through the options and the opportunities on our government funded courses. So we've got boot camps and we've also got apprenticeships. So there's a few options there for you.
So a couple other questions. Arshad asked about, is there a course for cybersecurity side which looks at ChatGPT? Not specifically, not at the moment. There will be one that's going to be coming out. Microsoft is providing one later in the year, I believe. But it is something that it could be discussed as part of the section on business cases and use cases, or case study area, that we can look at some of the cybersecurity features that go with it. That's the point at the case study part. That's the point where you guys can bring in your questions and ask them about different things that we can look at as a group and whatnot. So unfortunately, there is no course for Java developers. It's mostly Python. Yeah. As I mentioned before, I'm doing my master's degree, and all of the courseware and all of the lab exercises that we're doing in AI for doing data analysis is all done in Python. But if you know Java, you should be able to pick Python up pretty easily.
We've got 1 more minute before we wrap up the session. So David, there's no you can fill in the form, we can get you to speak to one of our course advisors, and then you've got under no obligation until you actually sign and hand over the money. So if you speak to one of our advisors, they'll be able to support you with that. Brilliant. So as I mentioned at the beginning, we will be posting the recording on YouTube. And in the meantime, have a wonderful rest of the day. And thanks ever so much for everybody joining. And I'll close off the session. Thanks, Brent.